In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light.
Rabbis for centuries, not recently, ladies and gentlemen, for centuries have had teachings where they have spotted comets and they've noticed what has happened a few years later. They've spotted a comet and they've noted what's happened years later. And they always will tell you the appearance of a comet means trouble for the world.
Remind you as the date gets closer so you can stock up on snacks and beverages, but a comet is coming. A big and brilliant comet arriving in November. It could potentially be 15 times brighter than the moon and visible in broad daylight over the U.S. We will be your Comet Network, and we'll keep you updated. We'll be hearing a lot about this next item over the next 11 months, but astronomers have identified a new asteroid about 150 feet across, which is headed our way and may come so close to Earth that it will pass between us and the satellites orbiting in space above us. There's some debate in the scientific community about whether a direct hit is even possible. Most steadfastly say no. They say this will be the closest pass of an asteroid in the history of tracking such things. And again, while this pass is supposed to miss us, the experts all say there's nothing wrong with making sure your affairs are in order.
The Yangtze River, the longest in China, has turned blood red as it runs through the city.
She's a diamond is not in her. She's a diamond under her. Wanna lay it down, I'll try my heart. Though I know gold is not in her.
July 30th, 1908. In a remote area of Siberia, the morning calm was rocked by an explosion. The powerful blast was heard 1,000 miles away.
There was an enormous fireball blast, something on the order of 15 megatons of equivalent energy, which is roughly 1,000 times that of the Hiroshima blast at the end of the Second World War. This was an extraordinary event.
Because of the remoteness of the Tunguska region, it was almost 20 years before any government researchers visited the site. The first expedition to reach Tunguska was headed by Russian mineralogist Leonid Kulik.
When the initial expedition got to the Tunguska area in 1927, the natives were reluctant to show the scientists into the region because they thought the god Agdi had devastated the area because of the wickedness that was going on, and he had destroyed the trees, killed the animals.
Kulik eventually convinced locals to direct him to the blast location. Believing a meteorite had caused the massive explosion, Kulik assumed he would find a crater at the point of the meteorite's impact. To his surprise, there was none.
He looked for meteorite samples on the ground because often when an object hits the Earth, it throws up debris, and the debris is recoverable around the edges of the crater. But of course he didn't find that either.
What Kulik discovered has stirred UFO debate for decades. At the blast's epicenter was a frozen swamp with an untouched clump of fully grown trees in the middle. Circled around the grove, 10 million dead trees lay in a symmetrical ring, seemingly mowed down by a cosmic scythe.
So here we have an enormous blast site with no crater, no fragments or meteorites around the rim of the crater, and this radial pattern of burnt trees knocked down for some 20 miles in all directions.
In the years that followed, others traveled to Tunguska to study the unusual occurrence.
There might have been fruits obtained by labors of another expedition sent by the head of the Soviet secret police in the late 1940s. But all we know is that such expedition existed. We do not know what has happened to the items and the information it collected.
There was no meteorite crater found. Trees were flattened, but nothing was burned. There was no impact anywhere. And what could have caused this?
Therefore, the aerolite travels from east to west, and no aerolite has ever been known to travel in any other direction. We therefore hold that in the first place, all aerolites originate from metallic gases precipitating their superfluous mineral substances, and secondly, that they prove the existence of a spherical metallic shell surrounding the whole Earth. Aerolites are all composed of various mineral substances found in the Earth, and it is therefore only natural to conclude that the atmosphere absorbs the metallic gases generated in the Earth, just in the same manner that it absorbs the moisture which rises from the sea and land. The aerolite, a heavy mass of metal flying through the air, would naturally produce friction between the outer surface and the metallic particles it is passing through. Friction begets heat, and heat begets sparks, hence the luminous train of the aerolite. This continuous and rigorous friction would likewise heat the metal forming the aerolite, which becoming red hot would in time burst and create that noise heard at such times. Our assumption that the atmosphere is in reality metallic gas is furthermore supported by the testimony of scientific investigation, which has discovered traces of mineral matter in the train of the aerolite.
One of the Earth's largest alleged meteorite impacts recorded in modern times occurred in a remote area of Siberia in 1908. The explosion was 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. It registered as a 5.0 earthquake on the Richter scale and sent an electromagnetic pulse halfway around the world. Ground Zero was a 5-mile wide area of scorched tree trunks, with a blast area extending 45 miles beyond where all the trees were knocked flat by the force of the shockwave. It killed hundreds of Siberian natives and political exiles instantly, and hundreds more died within a week, apparently from radiation poisoning. Strangely, many reliable witnesses claimed seeing a burning white cylinder with a multicolored tail dropping from the sky, but no crater or comet debris has ever been found. Meteors don't typically cause EMPs or radiation poisoning, and aren't usually described as burning white cylinders, prompting investigators to wonder exactly what happened. The Tunguska paradox remains the world's most powerful unexplained explosion event.
Geminid meteor shower. I've observed quite a few meteor showers in my life. Quite a few nice ones. They probably were the Geminids. going to mention some interesting things here very shortly. And we may watch this again, and I'll briefly comment. You've seen how the firmament works with triboluminescence and chemoluminescence in general.
Geminids are fast, bright, and reliable. They never fail to show up, and many observers count them as the finest meteors of the year. Meteor showers are supposed to come from comets, yet there is no comet that matches the orbit of the Geminid debris stream. Instead, the orbit of the Geminids is occupied by a thing called 3200 Phaethon. Discovered in 1983 by NASA's IRAS satellite, Phaethon looks remarkably like a rocky asteroid. It swoops by the Sun every 1.4 years, much like a comet would, but it never sprouts a dusty tail to replenish the Geminids. In 2010, one of the stereo probes recorded a doubling of Phaethon's brightness as it approached the Sun, as if sunlight was shining through a cloud of dust around the asteroid. The observers began to suspect 3200 Phaethon was something new, a rock comet. A rock comet is, essentially, an asteroid that comes very close to the Sun, so close that solar heating scorches dusty debris right off its rocky surface. This could form a sort of gravelly tail, but a mystery remains. How can such a stubby protuberance produce such a grand meteor shower? But where do they come from? That is the puzzle.
So there's a few things that I'd like to mention about what he was talking about there. Basically, the first thing is that it always comes back every year. It comes back at the same time of the year every year, which shows that it is the firmament doing it. It's funny to me that these astronomers that are supposedly so intelligent can't figure this out, but it is just the large firmament turning, or whatever's on top of it turning on top of it, and repeating the same, the same parts are hitting on the same part at the same time of the year. They rotate around and come back and bump into each other again at the same time of the year and create these comets at the same time of the year in the same pattern, which shows that it is the firmament. The second thing that I'd like to point out is this hilarious IRAS satellite. They're telling us that they have a satellite up in space that aims out and shoots infrared radio signals at objects that they think, or they tell us, are extremely far away. And I've recently had this come up with people on my channel trying to tell me that flat Earth is ridiculous because of radio astronomy, and that they can measure distant objects and distant bodies and tell us exactly what those bodies are doing at any given time. So to address that, I'll just say that, first of all, the satellite is ridiculous. We know that. The idea of using radio or radar or anything like that to take measurements at any kind of distance is completely blown out of the water by their own Van Allen, who said that in his original documents, he mentioned that the Van Allen belt is effectively a plasma shield, a large plasma shield, which is like a thick band of basically dense dense fire or dense, dense energy, and no radio signals can pass into that energy, and then through that energy, and be able and sustain the signal that it had when it went into that energy, or to be able to sustain that signal going through the other side of it or coming back. So just there's another proof for your Apollo stuff that there's no way they were communicating in between those two locations. If you either model you believe in, if you believe that that there is a large space out there and that there's a lot of space for us to travel in, then, or if you believe in the helio model and you believe in the Van Allen belts, then you have to recognize what Van Allen himself said about them. And if you believe in the flat Earth model, then obviously everything just becomes that much more simple. So.
Wanna lay you down.
That's trippy. It's loud. It's even got my dogs barking. It's even got my rabbit standing up. Check them out. That's scary shit. Holy. Sounds like, oh no, in the sky, hard to see, really hard to see. Like fucking just all clouds too. What's that, crazy? What's that?
So again, investigators are still trying to determine what it was. I'm going to read some information. I just got an update from our desk back at the station. Emergency officials in Lower Bucks County have also received numerous calls about a large boom and the ground shaking, just like some folks were describing out here.
So far, no explanation of what happened here, but it really got the attention of a lot of people, even as far away as Bensalem, reporting that they felt that their homes were shaking. Police radio have received a lot of calls. The police have received calls.
There's been a lot of buzz over the last few weeks about strange sounds being heard in the atmosphere. People around the world and here at home have reported hearing some bizarre noises. The latest were recorded in the Battlefords last weekend. John Baglieri has more on the strange occurrence that could have a very logical explanation.
It came in many forms last Sunday night. To some, it sounded like trumpets. To others, a mariner's horn. North Battleford's mayor says he can't explain it.
What I was hearing was what I experienced as a possibly scraping.
Mike Halstead was lying in bed when his phone rang. Calls and text messages came in from his friends saying they too had similar experiences.
That's when the goosebumps got me, and I kind of thought, yeah, it's awfully strange.
Hey, 93.3 The Rock? The next day, the local radio station The Rock got flooded with over 40 calls and Facebook messages, each person wanting to know what that sound was last night.
I don't think I've ever had a response that big about something, and it's interesting, right? Human nature, people just want to know what the sounds are.
It's now days later, and the city is still abuzz with talk about the sounds. Everybody with their own guess, estimation, or explanation as to where they came from.
I've heard that Jesus is coming back. I've heard that it's 2012, the world is ending.
This phenomenon stretched beyond North Battleford. Similar experiences were reported in Saskatoon, northern Saskatchewan, and parts of the U.S., even in Europe.
So what other evidence have we got? Now there's a Nordic god called Heimdall who blasts on his trumpet to announce the onset of Ragnarok, the Norse equivalent of Armageddon. The book of Revelation also talks of trumpets. And in Corinthians it says, trumpets will sound and the dead shall be raised and the living will be transformed.
Okay, hi guys, welcome back to Flatwater. What we're going to talk about today is Wormwood and the end times in general. So I'm going to jump right to the chase here. There's a lot of people talking about this arc of Gabriel's arc, and that Obama and Kirill have gone to Antarctica, the South Pole, to escape from the end times. So, in my opinion, this does line up and work out with. I don't know about the Ark of Gabriel or Kirill. I'm not an expert in those matters, or in any of these matters, but I'll give you my opinion. So, what I see Wormwood as is the cracking of the dome at the North Pole, and that when the dome cracks and a star falls from there, pulling 1/3 of the host or 1/3 of the stars to the Earth, that then the angels' bowls are poured down with wormwood and other abominations. And it also says that a large object will fall down and block up the Euphrates River and dry it up. And we know that the headwaters of the major rivers of the world come from the North Pole. So in my studies, from what I've pieced together, from what I see in this picture, I think that that is what will happen, that the pole will crack that the dome will crack at the North Pole, and that wormwood will be poured out. So if you picture that there's a gigantic waterfall at the North Pole that has all the waters of the world falling onto it, as is described in Mercator's letters, and also in Olaf Jansen's travels, and also Paradise Found, William Warren, and also Plato, and also the Scandinavian wood cuttings and carvings, and also the Thracians, and also the Chinese, and also the Aztecs, and also the Egyptians, and we can just go on and on with every single culture around the world, that they all talk about the North Pole being their center of the world, and that's where humans came from, that Hyperborea, Eden, was at the North Pole, and that the headwaters of all the major rivers of the earth come from there. So what we have, we're going to get into Revelations and Mother Shipton and some other predictions about the end times. So let's get started. So, and this is why Obama and the elites would go to Antarctica, is because, as it describes in the book of Revelation and in other descriptions, it describes that North America will be basically destroyed, and that it will be poisoned, and that most of the occupants or inhabitants of the North will be killed. So you can understand that if a large piece of the dome was going to crack off there and cause major catastrophes and calamities and earthquakes and deaths in the north and around the northern hemisphere, that the elites would attempt to go to the southern hemisphere to avoid that calamity. So that's why it makes sense that they would be running there. However, they're not running to the South Pole to find a star or to try to escape or to try to escape the plane. They're not trying to get away to another place. They're just trying to stay alive longer by avoiding this catastrophe in the north, and the cracking of the dome and the falling of the star and the pouring out of the wormwood. So they're just trying to run away and buy themselves a little bit more time. Okay, and also we're going to go through different versions of Revelation in the Bible, and I'm going to show you how the elites have modified the text to make it say what they want it to say, to make it sound like it's a planet that's coming in and hitting Earth, and how they want it to, how they're going to use that to manipulate our perceptions of these things to have us be mistaken about the true nature of these events. So we're going to go through Revelation, and we're going to go through some of the other texts of the Bible, and I'm going to show you the original Hebrew version, and we're going to break that down, and then we're going to break down, first we'll break down the modern interpretation, what everybody thinks, and then we'll break down the old version of it so that we can get to the root of the matter and find out what really was said in the original versions of the Bible. So we're going to use the Hebrew Orthodox Bible to do that. So and we also see, I'm going to put together and show you guys how NASA has put out these rumors and these speculations of Wormwood and Nibiru and Planet X. And I'm going to show you how they've actually propagated this lie along with their heliocentric lie in order to have us be fully mistaken about what it is. And I'm going to show you some of their propaganda that you can see right here. And what you can see is that they've been putting out these high quality CGI cartoons and they've been putting these right out to the news media and playing it in the news media to scare people and to give them completely the wrong idea and lead them down the garden path, as it were. So I'm going to show you some of their official propaganda, and it's amazing. It's all over the internet. It's all over. Wherever you look, you'll find this stuff. So we've got this one, the WTF files. And you can see when I was picking these up on the internet, it's funny. I go to a website that says, Wormwood or something to that effect, and yet when you look at the actual address name, it goes NASA. So it would say something like Space Pictures Today or World Space Pictures, or it just seemed like a normal website that someone had built. But when you track back their IP and look at the actual full name of that IP address, at the end it says .nasa.gov or .nasa. So you can see that they're putting it out as though it was some other private individual that had put out that information, when really it was being pushed hard from NASA. And you'll see this all over all kinds of the YouTube channels, where once you've seen this show, you'll be able to pick out who's what and who's doing what. One that I'll call out straight away is Marshall Masters. This is the guy who's really been pushing Nibiru and Planet X for a long, long time. And it makes me wonder, because there's all these high-end graphic simulations and graphical pieces that he uses, and they all come from NASA. None of these are, a very small amount are made by private individuals. When you actually find the documents, actually find the pictures, and track them back, you find that they all come from NASA. So I've conglomerated a nice little piece of NASA propaganda here, and so you'll see that as we go through. And what they're doing is having us believe that Wormwood and Nibiru and Planet X they're actually several thousand years later than many of the other documents and the other stories and histories that were spread around the world, that in fact, and the Anunnaki were somewhere mid-range, mid-age of these tribes, and we'll get into that as well, and I'll show you how it's actually come from the North Pole, and how the story of Atam and Ua and Adam and Eve is actually a much older story and was preserved perfectly by other cultures. And so what you can see is how they took their stories and manipulated it for their own people back thousands of years ago. They changed the titles of the characters to suit their own personages that were in the land at that time. And then we'll see how those translations that are out now, how they were modified as well to propagate the story that Wormwood and Nibiru are on these 3,600 year elliptical orbits that come back around. And you can see how it's really quite ingenious what they've done here, how they've pieced together the Anunnaki information with the Wormwood information and how they've tied that up into their heliocentric model, and how they've made the Bible seem to be some sort of a manufactured thing, and that their information was the original, and that there's these alien visitors that come from other planets that are our rulers and our creators. And you can see how this all fits together perfectly as the Antichrist's plan and the great deception, the grand delusion that all people will be under. And so you can see, once we put it all together here, you'll clearly see the pieces of how they have manipulated these texts to make it fit their story, and they buried and hidden and locked up these other stories. So I have many examples of this, too many to even probably fit into this movie. They're all over the place. Okay, so let's get into it.
House snapped in half. Booms.
Some bizarre noises.
Some strange noises heard around the world the last few weeks. There is now audio proof.
There's been a lot of buzz over the last few weeks about strange sounds being heard in the atmosphere. People around the world and here at home have reported hearing some bizarre noises.
Some strange noises heard around the world the last few weeks has people buzzing, especially on YouTube. Clips posted from Arizona to England and right next door in Manitoba, all showing folks alarmed by what sounds like a noise straight out of a science fiction flick.
They've happened here and across the country. Mysterious booming noises that for the most part have gone unexplained.
No one seems to know what is causing these weird booms. Not police, not scientists, not even the military.
Did you guys hear that? It's weird. I've never heard anything like that before.
Отойди оттуда, выйди.
Was ist das?
Ich habe keine Ahnung, der Junge da unten guckt auch. Ich weiß es nicht.